Welcome to the online lectures for information security. The topic that we'll be discussing today is the information security blueprint. Now, what is the information security blueprint? Now, once an organization has developed the information security policies and the different standards, the information security community can begin planning the security blueprint for this information security program that they are going to follow within the organization. Now, this information security program, it acts like a framework for the organization. This blueprint acts as a framework for the organization. Now, this information security blueprint, this is a basic for designing, selection, and implementation of all the different policies, standards that you have designed, and it is also useful for education and training programs and other technological control. So this blueprint is going to help you design, select, and also going to tell you how you're going to implement the different policies and the different standards. Then it also gives you a more detailed version of your security framework. Now, within the first security framework, that when you are defining your different policies and standards, as you are identifying what design needs to be there, how you're going to select, how these are going to be represented. So this becomes a more detailed version of your security framework. It also specifies the different tasks and the order in which they need to be accomplished. So if you have a list of actions that need to be followed so that you can ensure the security of the software. So it is also going to tell you what are the different that you are need to different actions that you need to follow, and also it tells you what are the different, what is the order in which you need to do. If suppose there are steps like A, B, C, D, so which step comes first? If suppose C comes first, then D, then A and B. So it is going to tell you the order in which you are going to follow all the different actions. Then this information security blueprint, it also serves as a scalable, upgradable, and a comprehensive plan for information security needs for the coming years. Now, as you are upgrading the features based upon the changing time, as the time changes, you have to update your policies, you need to update the standards, the threats are increasing. So based upon that, as you're upgrading all these different policies, it becomes it is sufficient for you to use this within the coming years. Now, the next one is the ISO 2000 27000 series. Now, this ISO, this is one of the most widely referenced security model. One of the most widely referenced security model. Now, what is the purpose of this ISO model? The purpose of this model is that it is going to give recommendations for your information security management. That is why this particular series is being used. Now, this ISO series, this is a framework for your information security, and it is also going to state the organization security policy and is needed to provide management direction and support. As I told you, the main purpose is that how it is going to recommend how you're going to manage all the features. Now, to help you manage all the features, you need to know what are the different policies that the organization follows and how you are going to manage this. It also is going to provide a common basis for developing the organization security. The next standard is the ISO IEC 27001 to 2005 Plan, Do, Check, Act cycle. Now, within this ISO IEC cycle, you're going to have planning, do, check, and act. These are the four different tasks that you're going to follow. Now, within this plan, you've got different activities. Now, within the plan, you've got define the scope of ISMS. Now, what is ISMS? ISMS is your information security management system. So this is going to tell you what are the things that you need to plan. You need to define the scope of your information security management system. Now, when you've defined the scope, you're going to define the policies that you're going to use. Then the approach that you're going to follow for risk assessment. Then you're going to identify the risks. When you know what are the different risks, you can identify and you can assess the risks. The assessment is done. Then identify and evaluate the different options for treatment of risk. Now, as you've identified the different risks, you can try and eliminate the risk or you can reduce the impact of risk. That is being done here. Then select the control objectives and controls. Now, when you know the different risks, like risk identification is done, then you're going to assess all the risk. Now when you've assessed the risk, you're also going to identify how you're going to control the risk. So based upon that, when you know what type of risk is that, and you need to identify how it is going to be controlled. If you remember, we've studied this in detail within the previous classes. Then prepare a statement of applicability. Now when you know what are the different controls, you also need to know how you're going to apply all of these controls so that you can reduce the impact of risk. So the next set of actions is the actions for do. Now when you have identified how you what you're going to plan, the first step was plan. The second step is what you're going to do. You're going to formulate a risk treatment plan. You're going to first make a plan, then you're going to implement that plan, then implement the controls and implement a training and awareness program. When you've identified the risk, you've assessed the risk, you've identified how you're going to control the risk, you're making a treatment plan. This is a plan. Now this is what you're actually doing based upon your plan. So you make a plan, then you're going to implement that plan, then take this controls, implement this controls. Now when you implemented the controls, everyone in the organization is not aware what are the different controls, how you're going to use them, how they're applied. So you're going to provide the customers or the different employees within the organization some training program so that they get to know how they're going to use the specified controls. Then you're going to manage all the operations and the different resources. Then implement procedures to detect and respond to security incident. That is, if suppose an attack is being launched, how you're going to identify that the attack is being launched and what is that you're going to do, what control strategy can be implemented. You're going to identify that within the do plan. So planning is done, plan is done, do is done. Now the next one is act. Plan is done, do, then the third one is act. Now what you're going to act upon, you're going to implement the identified improvements. Now once you've identified the different controls, when you implement a certain controls, you get to know their disadvantages, their drawbacks, or their loopholes. So when you identify those loopholes, you're going to make improvements within your plan. So because whenever you're making a plan, when you run on real-time system, that is when actually attack is being launched, you get to know the capability of that particular control. Then you get to know what are the improvements that can be done. So based upon that, you're going to make those improvements. That is, you're acting upon the specific attack. Then take corrective or preventive actions. This is you're going to identify when attack is being launched, if the attack is more severe, how you and your control is not in place. So how you're going to control, how you're going to make changes within that specified control and any preventive action so that you can reduce the impact of risk to that specific asset. Then apply lessons learned. That is when you know what controls are there, how you're going to reduce the impact of risk, you're going to apply those specific to different strategies also. Then communicates result to interested parties. Now the main thing is that when you communicate among the different parties, the different members within the organization, you get to know what are different loopholes, what problems they're facing, how you're going to reduce the impacts of risk. Each of the things are going to be known here. Then the next is ensure improvement, achieve objectives. That is whatever the first point, what are the different improvements that you're doing? These improvements, they should achieve the objectives of your information security plan. Now this is a table that shows the series, current and planned standards. You've got the ISO 27000 series standards. What is the publication date? What is the title of that specific standard, and what are the comments based upon those different standards. The next one is the NIST security model. Now this NIST stands for your National Institute of Standard and Technology. Now, within this NIST, you're going to have a set of different documents. So these different documents are made available from the Computer Security Resource Center of the NIST. These are all documents. Now, the first one is SP 80012. This is a computer security handbook. The next one is the SP 80014. That is it is a generally accepted principle and practices for securing the IT systems. Now, these are the different, you can say that these are kind of booklets or catalogs that is going to tell you what is within the first one tells you it is a handbook for computer security. The second is different practices that you're going to implement for IT systems. The third one, the 8018, it is the guide for developing security plans, how you're going to make security plans for these IT systems. Then the next one is P8026. This is a self-assessment guide for information security, for information technology systems. That is when you implement specific controls, how you're going to assess those controls. Then the next one is SP80030. This is a risk management guide for information technology systems. How you're going to manage all the risk that will be identified within this specific document. Then the next one is the NIST special publication for 80014. The previous one that we have studied, now this SP 8014, this is a generally accepted principle and practices for securing the IT systems. Now this NIST 80014, this is one of the most generally accepted principle and practices for the security IT system. Now this NIST systems, this is going to provide you with the best practices and the best security principles that are going to direct the security team in the development of the security blueprint. Now there's 33 principles for securing the systems. A few of them are mentioned. Security supports the mission of the organization. That is what you're securing is. What is the mission of the organization? You're going to secure that specific. Then the next one is it is an integral element of the sound management. The next is security should be cost effective. That should not cost you more. The next is owners have security responsibilities outside their own organization. That each system owners are expected to diligently work with those systems that are interconnected and so. Then security responsibilities and accountable should be made explicit. All the different policy documents should be clearly identified so that everyone gets to know that these are the policies that need to be implemented. So you get to know what is the responsibility of the user. Then the next is security requires a comprehensive and integrated approach. Now, this security is everyone's responsibility. It is not one person's responsibility. It is everyone's responsibility. You cannot just tell that the other person is implementing security, so I do not need to follow that. Then the next is security should be periodically reassessed. Now, once you implement some security controls in place, you're not just going to leave it that it is going to do the job. You need to check whether it is doing the correct job, whether any updates are required. If you require any updates are there or any changes need to be there, or whether it is working properly or not the way you want it to work, this will be identified. Then security is constrained by societal factors. Now, this is that what is the legal demand, what are the different the shareholders requirements, the different business practices. So this is within with what the society thinks. So these all factors are also going to be there within the security. The next one is the IETF security architecture. Now this IETF, it stands for Internet Society and the Internet Engineering Task Force. Now this IETF, now what happens within the IETF Security Act is that you've got different security area working groups. Now this acts as an advisory board for different protocols and areas that are developed and promoted by the IETF. That is the entire society and this different task force, the security area group, it acts as an advisory board for that is what are different protocols that you're using for some specific for securing specific areas within the organization. This is going to help you with that. Now here you have a standard RFC 2196. Now you've got site security handbook covers 5 basic areas of security with detailed discussion on development and implementation. That is, this is a specific handout that covers 5 different areas of security and that are discussed in detail how you're going to develop them and how these are implemented. So there are different chapters on such important topics as these 5 basic areas. These are your security policies, and then you have your security technical architecture, then you have the security services and the security incident handling. So these are the 5 basic areas that are covered within the RFC 2196. The next is baselining and best business practices. Now this baselining and best practices, this is one of the solid method for collecting the different security practices. But this baselining and best security practices have one drawback, and that drawback is of providing less detail for the design and implementation of all the different practices. So it's got an advantage as well as a disadvantage. That first, it is one of the most solid method for collecting all the different security practices that different organizations are having. But the drawback is that it gives you very less detail of the different designs and implementation of all the different practices. Now, the Federal Agency Security Practices site is designed to provide the best practices for public agencies. This particular site has got the best practices that will be used by different public agencies, and it is also adapted easily to by different institutions. So it is useful for public agencies as well as different private institutions. Now, this document that are found by this site, these include specific examples of the different key policies, how you're going to plan. So you're going to have the different planning documents. Then you need to have the implementation strategy that you're going to follow. When you know the different policies, you also need to know how these need to be implemented. Strategies for your different technologies. So these are the different documents that will be found within this site. Then the next topic is design of security architecture. Now, the design of security architecture, here you've got the spheres of security. Now, the spheres of security this is the foundation of your security framework. Now, before we study this, the spheres of security, we'll be studying the levels of control, because these levels of control, these are implemented within this or used within the sphere of security. Now, there are three types of controls that are used within the level of control. You've got management controls, operational controls, and technical controls. So management control are going to tell you how you're going to manage. So it covers the different processes designed by strategic planners and what are performed by the security administrators. So the job of your administrators and the planners is that how you're going to manage all the different security processes. That is, they are going to do the management. Then the operation control, they are going to deal with what are the different functions of the security, what each policy's task is, how they're going to achieve that particular goal. That is your operational control. Then the third is your technical controls. Now this technical controls is going to address all your technical implementations, how you're going to technically implement a specific design or specific policy or specific control, security control. That is your three controls. Management is for managing, operations is going to have different functionalities, technical controls are going to deal with the different technicalities of your design. So three controls are there. So here you've got two spheres. You've got the sphere of use and you've got the sphere of protection. So the sphere of security, it is the foundation of your security framework. Now, the sphere of security is going to represent that information is under attack from the different sources. So the figure at the left, that is a sphere of use. This is going to illustrate that people can directly access the information. People are directly accessing the information. Like if we take an example, like reading hard copies of documents, they can access information by making use of some specific systems or different electronic storage of information. So people have got direct access to information. Now this information, it is the most important asset of security. As this is the most important asset of security, this information is always at risk from different attacks from people and different computer systems. And this can be done by making use of different computers or from the people. Now here, within the spheres, you've got the systems, networks, and internet. Now this network and internet, these two represent the indirect attacks. Network and internet, these are your indirect attacks. At the right, you have got the sphere of protection. Now this sphere of protection, this figure tells you that between each layer of sphere of use, that is this, between each layer of the sphere of use, that is your internet, network, system, information, people, there should exist one layer of protection should be added between this each layer. That is, between information and system, there should be a layer of protection. Between the system, networks, and internet, this should be a control. So here, this specific diagram, these are your shaded areas. So these shaded areas, these shaded areas are your level of protection. Now, if we take an example, this layer that is labeled as policy and law, this layer is placed in between the information and the people. Here, this line, this shaded area is between the information and the people. So here policies and laws are placed here, whereas these are also placed between system and information. These are also placed between the network and the internet. So policies and laws, these are placed at three different areas, that is three barriers are placed between the sphere of use. That is, between each layer of sphere of use, there should exist a layer of protection. Now, different controls are also implemented between this system. That is, here at this, you're not only implementing different controls like education and training, security planning, you're also implementing the different controls. The controls that we have studied within the previous slide, the operational controls, management controls, and technological controls. So these controls are also implemented between these different layers. Now, all these controls are implemented between the system and the information. That is, all the controls are implemented between the system that are accessing the information, and also between the different networks and the different computers that are there on the internet. This is called as your defense in depth. Layers of control implemented between information systems, networks, and the internet. This concept is called as defense in depth. So here within this diagram, the right side we've got people, at the left we've got technology. So different controls that are implemented are the redundancy, the monitoring systems, patches and upgraders, host IDPs, firewalls are there, network IDPs, proxy servers, encryption, backups, different access control. That is how who are accessing the specific information, what system can access, what people can access. All these controls are implemented between each layer, between information system, networks, internet. Now, the member of the organization, they must have a safeguard that, and different people that needs to be effectively trained so that they can implement all these controls and these layers of protection. Or else this different people, they will also become a threat to this information. So this is your sphere of security. It involves two spheres, spheres of use and spheres of protection. Now, defense in depth, I've given already told you what is defense in depth. The next is security perimeters. Now, the security perimeter, this is a point at which the organization's security protection ends and outside world begins. That is when you're, till what extent you can provide your security, and after that, where the outside world begins. That is where you, the different types of attacks are there, people interacting directly with the information, where you cannot implement this level of security. That is, if suppose some people access your, if some people try and capture your access details, your ID card, that is a security perimeter. Now, the security perimeter does not apply to any internal attacks. As I told you, like any person steals an ID of another, of a manager, and tries to intrude a specific place where all your documents information is kept. So this security perimeter will not cover the internal attacks from the employees or on-site physical attack. That is, someone comes and works at your place, but the main aim of him working at your place is to launch an attack from the system. Because if suppose your security is tight enough and they cannot launch an attack from outside, they can use such type of method. And that is why access policies, access rights are given to some specific set of people only. Now, the next one is a few more technological components are your firewalls. You know what is the job of the firewalls. Then you've got DMZs, demilitarized zones, that are like a no man's land between inside and the outside network, where some place web servers. Now, these web servers, they provide access to the specific web pages when they are entered through a network. And then the next is your proxy servers. and your intrusion detection system. Now this intrusion detection system, when put in place, when this intrusion detection system is put in place, now you might see in specific movies, people come and attack the servers of a particular organization. Now how do you get to know that the server is being attacked? Now when you have this intrusion detection system, you get to know when there is an uh, when there is an incorrect or there is an illogical login in your computer's database. Someone tries to access the data from outside. They come into your system and they plug in some machines, they crack the code, they have an they get access to the information. So by making use of this intrusion detection system, you get to know when an intrusion is being detected in the servers. Now this is the diagram for defense in depth. You've got the different untrusted networks. Now between this untrusted network and the trusted network, you place a firewall. Now the job of your firewall, it is going to devise or select only those devices that have access to that specific information. So it selectively discriminates against information flowing in or out of the organization, who is going to access data and what type of data is being coming in and coming out of the firewall. So here you've got the untrusted network and the trusted network. Between that, you've got a firewall that is placed in here. And here you're also got your intrusion detection system put in place. Now the job of this intrusion detection system is that it is going to try and identify if there is any illogical attempt within the servers of the organization. Now with this untrusted network, if it tries to access some specific data, you've got the firewall in place that is going to filter the packets that are coming in and coming out of the network. Then this is your security parameters. Now your security parameters are where the security of the organization ends and the real world starts. So here you've got the trusted network. These trusted networks are your security perimeter. That is, these are the ones that are trusted and this come within your security perimeter. But if you've got an external filtering router, then that is outside your security perimeter. So these security perimeters, they are not going to protect you against any attack that is being launched from within the organization. Then this last represents your firewalls, proxies, servers, and DMZs, how they are placed. That's the end of today's class.